Anything about politics, and it seems as though my camera is frozen, maybe? Uh-oh. Um, let's see if we can get back on the internet. That's essential. All right, welcome everybody to Ask Me Anything About Politics. If you got any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat. You throw your questions in the chat and you get a good answer. That is the way that this live stream works. I know that politics is weird these days. I know it's complicated and confusing, and there's a lot of misinformation and propaganda out there. It can be really difficult to figure out what's accurate, relevant information, and so that is what we are doing here. We are just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics with good faith answers. So long as you are here with the intention of engaging in politics as opposed to getting into a fight or anything like that, then your question will be answered with all of the sincerity that you have asked it. So yeah, everybody is welcome to this live stream. I don't care if you are a Republican, a Democrat, a progressive, a MAGA, a centrist, whatever. I don't care if you voted for Trump or Biden or Harris or whoever. If you have a good faith question about politics, then you will get a good faith answer. Indie Television says, "Are you a Republican or a Democrat?" I'm a progressive Democrat. That is my title. Welcome back, Jack. Jack, good to see you again. George or 475 says, "Thoughts on Governor Andy Bashir?" I don't know a lot about him, but he seems like an okay guy to me. Welcome, everybody, to Ask Me Anything About Politics. We are here to have engaging conversations about politics without any fighting or roasting or debating. User a bunch of numbers says, "What's your background to know anything about politics?" I just know a lot about it from my own private research and education. I read a lot I read the news every day. I listen to news podcasts. So yeah, I'm up on shit. Jack, should a 225 bench squat and deadlift be required for the presidency? I don't know if I can do that. And yeah, I know that I'm not the ideal candidate for president, but I think I'm at least strong enough to be that. But that's pretty funny, Jack. George Orr, Bashir Slotnick, 2028. Eliza Slotnick, is that who that is? I'm not, throwing my hat in the ring for any particular candidate or candidates yet. I'm going to see how things shake out in the primary. More importantly, I think we need to focus on the midterms in 2026. That, I think, is where the rubber meets the road. Right, Likely says, "What do you think about Jimmy Show getting taken down?" It's fucking terrifying. It is straight up authoritarianism. The government is using their power to put pressure on companies to fire people that the Trump administration does not like. It is straight up fucking fascism shit. Like, we are in the bad place, guys. The alarm should be blaring for everybody. Alrighty. Pamela Taylor says, "Why are people so afraid of Mamdani? He's honest, respectful, and honorable." I think that people have I think there are some people in the Democratic Party who have good faith worries that electing somebody who is a Muslim or a self-described democratic socialist might paint the Democratic Party as more extreme or the worst version of the way that people describe the Democratic Party as being like in bed with Sharia law and shit like that. And I think that there are some people who are just like racist and prejudiced against people of other faiths, and so, or they have really bought into the brainwashing around the word socialism and what it means, and that it's a negative thing as opposed to being mainly benign. Oh, excuse me, everybody. Whew, first time sneezing on the live stream. Maitland Bates says, "Is democracy dead?" It's not right now. It is on life support, and it needs people like you and me to do the work to keep it alive. Pack says, "Do you think U.S. voting matters when Israel is in control?" Anyway, Israel is not in control. Israel is one of many factors, including AIPAC, which is an extremely well-funded organization that influences our government because we have a system that allows unlimited amounts of dark money to influence our elections. Naked Eddie Comedy says, "Mad respect, love you, man. NYC comic here. Also, thoughts on text messages." I don't know how that relates to politics, Naked Eddie. Pack says, "Why are we sending 250 people to Israel?" I don't know, Pack. But there are other things going on in the world besides Israel. So I might step away from the anti-Semitic conspiracy theories if I were you. Cameron Hodge, well, good to see you again. Why should USA care so much about what goes on overseas, such as wars, etc.? Those things eventually affect us, whether it is, climate change, where if you have a country that is just shoving tons of carbon, capture gases, I forget the phrase, into the atmosphere while everybody else is being fucking cool about it, that one country could still do a lot of damage. Diseases that exist in other countries don't necessarily stay where they are. Authoritarianism and global conflicts and civil wars, they have a way of reaching everybody. And so I think it is in the best interest of everybody in America to not be fully isolationist, but maybe to lead into more soft power channels like diplomacy. You ever hear about, boy, wouldn't some diplomacy be nice, guys? All right, Ryan Bolling says, what side are you on? I am on the side of the people and the truth. Cholanona says, do you think our dollar value is going to decrease? It is happening. It is currently happening. It is going to continue happening so long as the Trump administration continues their stupid ass policies. Freddie Mac says, so if someone mentioned or asked a question about Israel, it's anti-Semitic? No, but there is a certain way that people focus on Israel when there are other organizations doing the exact same thing that I find to be a little anti-Semitism coded. I come on here every fucking weekday and I talk to people about politics, and every day I get people being like, Israel controls the American government, which is just like a hair's breadth away from saying Jews control the markets in secret underground banks that only they control and shit like that. So where I think there are some extremely well, reasoned and morally sound ways that you can criticize things like AIPAC or the Netanyahu government, blanket statements and a religious focus on Israel, those seem to be like either anti-Semitic dog whistles or the boiling the frog in water of making everybody in the country more anti-Semitic unconsciously. Topher Burns says, there are no other organizations doing the same as AIPAC. There 100% are. The Heritage Foundation, the Federalist Society, they are all using unlimited amounts of dark money to influence our politics and control our elected politicians. Cameron Hodge says, why is religion such a big focus in American politics? The right has recognized a long time ago that you can get people to vote your way if you incorporate their religion into your platform. And so it's been a very effective strategy, to the point where there is an extremely powerful vein in the Republican right of Christian nationalism, which is obviously terrifying, where the Democratic Party is trying to protect the separation between church and state. The Republican Party is leaning into it. And we are potentially, if people don't actually get up and do some shit about it, looking at America becoming an ethno-fascist state. Let's see here. Cameron Hodge says, hope all is well. What do you make of the Kimmel firing? It is straight up fascism. It is straight up fascism. That's First Amendment shit right there, guys. Like, getting upset because you got kicked off of Facebook because you said the N-word too many times, that is not a First Amendment violation. But the government using their power to get somebody fired for speech that they did not like is a First Amendment violation. That is straight up censorship, fucking authoritarian Russia, Nazi Germany shit. Right. Light bulb emoji says, he created a lie on national television. Yeah, the government's still not allowed to get you fired for that. Let's see here. Jack says, in the event of a draft, would you fight for our country or would you choose prison? I mean, I'm definitely too old and enfeebled to get drafted. I don't know if I would trust our current government that my, blood and muscles are going to be used for just causes. So I would probably take prison if that was, if that was my options. Chris, did you hear my answer on Kimmel, or do you need me to repeat? Let's see here. Pickle Waffle says a private company did. No, a private company did not want to. A private company was forced to because the government was exerting pressure over them. They have like a merger, or they're threatening revoking their license or shit like that. There's no legal justification for what the Trump administration is doing to ABC, Disney, whatever conglomerate is. But the reporting is clear on this, that the higher ups at ABC did not want to do this to Kimmel. They were forced to by our government. Right, Cameron Hodge. I Love My Kitty says, why are both parties bought out by Israel? They aren't. In fact, the Democratic Party is less influenced by Israel and AIPAC than the Republican Party. So if that's something that you don't like, then you should vote for Democrats. I Love My Kitty says, why is it Israel first instead of America first? You see, this is exactly what I was talking about, guys, when I'm talking about this religious focus on Israel being kind of anti-Semitic coded. So yeah, are you guys seeing it also, everybody? Let's see here. Lightbulb emoji says, how do you allow yourself to sit here and create false narratives? By the way, my username is a spider. I mean, I'm not creating false narratives. Can you tell me a single thing that I have said that you think is inaccurate? Spider emoji. Stringfellow Hawk says, Biden administration pressured Twitter into banning conservatives. That is not true. Stringfellow Hawk, I hope that you get your information from better sources in the future. Cameron Hodge, what do you think of Kash Patel's Senate community hearing? I hate, with all of the bones in my body, every single one of these fucking hearings, because all it is a fucking shouting match. And as much as I think the Democratic senators and House members are doing the proper work of trying to hold these people accountable, it ends up devolving into shouting matches because these people have learned, these fuckers in the Trump administration have learned that if you just create a mess, if you just create a mess of yelling and screaming and trying to own each other, then it only benefits the right. It just creates this, everybody's the same, everybody's yelling, everybody's lying kind of narrative. So yeah, I fucking hate them. I think that the people on the left are obviously making good points, but goddamn, like it is just it's so fucking embarrassing and stupid to watch that. Like that's our fucking government, you know. All right, Jay says everyone is lying. Not everyone. I Love My Kitty says, you guys hate Christians. No, I don't. And who's you guys? Who the fuck are you talking about? You're really close, I Love My Kitty. I do not love your kitty. That's for darn sure. Cameron Hodge says, Jay says left, right are the same. That is not true, Jay. There are massively different outcomes depending on who is in charge. The platforms are different. The politicians are different. So you can miss me with that both sides bullshit. Sandra says, I'm still curious what gun control would look like realistically. Universal background checks, closing the gun show loophole, mandatory gun safety training, mandatory licenses, mandatory insurance. Like if you need insurance to own a car, why do you need insurance if you're going to own a gun? Alrighty, let's see here. The Light in the Darkness says Ant is EMT. It doesn't seem like you are here. Parliament is in the emails. Okay, yeah, you're out of here, Lemmy. All right. Lucy says domestic violence, automatic loss of guns. Yeah, I'm cool with that. Spider emoji says you didn't even answer the question. Why is it Israel over the U.S.? Should it not be U.S. first? Spider emoji, your question is overly simplistic and hyperbolic. The government of America does a lot for the people of Israel, but the government of America also does a lot for America. I understand how you might think it looks like our government is only doing what Israel tells them to do because the current government is being dog-walked by Benjamin Netanyahu. We are being led into these wars in the Middle East by Netanyahu because Trump is too fucking stupid and shitty at foreign policy and diplomacy to actually stand up to Netanyahu and not get dragged into these stupid fucking wars. All right. Diane Raya says Israel is free healthcare and abortion rights. Yeah, it must be nice. Chi Rod Corvey Nuts says the left are a bunch of thought police. That is rich considering that the Republican Party just had Kimmel and Colbert canceled. Cheney Dog says, right, because Biden and Kamala would have been so much better. They would have, and they were. Cheney Dog, I see your sarcasm. Ask a question or you're going to get booted. John Selford says, don't forget about banning assault weapons. Yeah, I'm down for that too. Cameron Hodge says, is Netanyahu a war criminal? 100%, without question. That is not even up for debate. Jack says, should abortion be legal? If so, at what stages? Let me know what you think. So the blue state model is that abortion is not allowed if the fetus can survive outside of the womb. That used to be the standard for whether abortion should be allowed or not. The current system that we have of states deciding how much abortion is allowed, the only thing that it is doing, it's not stopping abortion, it's not even it's not even decreasing the number of abortions. It is just making pregnancy more dangerous for women. Period. Full stop. Tyrone says the right has been getting canceled for years. Finally, both parties are being held accountable. Tyrone, the left has never done anything even close to what Donald Trump and the Republican Party are currently doing in regards to First Amendment censorship violations. If you don't ask a question, I'm going to boot you, Tyrone. I know exactly what you're doing here. Jack Jack says, thoughts on getting rid of the presidential election and letting the best beer pong player lead us? Probably a better system than we currently have, but not great. Lemmy Gardenmeister says, do some of these questions sound like Borat asking them because of your last name? I mean, if you're talking about the rampant anti-Semitism, then yeah. Spider Emoji says, I'm talking about the people who justified the celebration of Charlie Kirk by saying, what about Gaza? I'm talking about the people who justified the celebration of Charlie Kirk by saying, what about Gaza? What does that mean? I don't know what you're talking about. Spider emoji. I have no idea how those two things link together. All right, 1776 status says Dems are cooked. That is an example of the kind of comment that gets you blocked. I don't care if you have different political opinions than me, but actually ask a question, be part of the conversation. All right. Jenny from the talk says, do you think the next elections will be fair? They will be fair, but how fair they are depends entirely on people like you and me doing the work of making them fair. The Republican Party has been for a long time and will continue to use whatever power they have to lie, cheat, and steal their way into electoral wins. So maybe they are not hacking the election machines and actually changing votes from Democrat to Republican, but they are closing down polling locations in Democratic areas. They are instituting voter ID laws that are statistically it is a data-driven approach to get Democratic voters to not be able to vote. Because if you look at the demographics, the people who are most likely not to have IDs or not be able to afford IDs are people who were going to vote for the Democratic Party. So those laws and closing down DMVs in Democratic areas so that people have a harder time getting driver's licenses are all versions of the kind of lying, cheating, and stealing that Republicans use to win elections. And because they have full control of the government right now, it'll be way easier for them to use the power that they have to make our elections less fair. It'll be difficult. It won't be totalitarian. Like, there will still be protections based on whatever state that you live in. Like, I trust California's elections a lot more than I trust the elections in Ohio or, Alabama or whatever. But, there are still a lot of things that we should be doing going forward to make sure that our elections are safe and free and fair. So yeah, there are plenty of groups that are doing this work. So if you want to be more involved in that action, check out Indivisible, check out Vote Save America. Those are both great organizations, who are focused on election integrity. John Selfridge says, what can us blue dots in completely red states, Oklahoma, do to help set this country on the correct course? So there are votes that you can get in Oklahoma, and the work that you do to get more blue votes in Oklahoma, it just builds on itself, because the more people that you get involved in the cause, the more people you have potentially recruiting other people to the cause. So even if you lose election 1, you are better set up to win election 2. So yeah, I would just say find people to talk to in Oklahoma. You can use organizations like Indivisible or Run for Something or Vote Save America to find the exact people that you want to talk to. Or you can just do it phone tree style, and you just make sure that all your friends are on board, and then you ask them to get their friends on board, and they get their friends on board, etc., etc. All right. Jack Jack says, what is the best, most trustworthy news source in your opinion? I think, so the answer to that is 2 parts. Number 1, it's not right-wing media. Right-wing media has been proven time and time again to be the least accurate form of news. Some estimates have suggested as little as 20% accurate. The most accurate news that you can get is diverse news. So if you get a little bit from legacy media like the New York Times, a little bit from centrist media like the Associated Press, a little bit from foreign media like the Guardian UK, and a little bit from progressive media like Crooked or MSNBC, then I think that you were getting a very accurate picture of what's going on. But yeah, I wouldn't pick one news organization to say like that's the gold standard or anything like that. Ali N says, do you think Vance will help Trump with a coup the way Pence did not? 100%. Yeah, Vance is not above doing shit like that, which is why it is so necessary for us to all do the work right now of trying to win the midterms and be set up for success in 2028 as well. Christy Jonas Kazavkazi says, hey, thoughts on ABC canceling Jimmy Kimmel Show? Does it mean Trump turning into a dictator? Yes, 100%, Christy. Absolutely, full stop. Cannot say this loudly and more emphatically. What the Trump administration is currently doing is fucking fascist 1930s Germany fucking shit. They are using the power of the government to punish speech that they do not like, getting people fired from their jobs for speech that they do not like, putting pressure on organizations to fire people that they do not like. That's government censorship. That's First Amendment violation shit, you know? Whereas getting kicked off of Facebook for saying the N-word too many times is not. All right, let's see here. Eric says, I'm a conservative, but I don't think we're doing a good job right now. Why do you consider yourself a conservative, Eric? Let's see here. Dan Blackroyd says, those blue organizations in deep red states are often the most scrappy. Yeah, I mean, there's a part of me that wishes I was there so that I could be really fucking getting my hands dirty. Let's see here. John Selfridge, are you coming to Oklahoma City with Steve Hostetter in November? No, I am off the road until 2026 at the earliest. And then, I'm still waiting to hear from Steve about what next year's schedule is going to look like, which is, a little complicated because his wife is pregnant. Eric says, I'm a veteran, maybe I'm not 100% conservative. I do have some liberal views. I understand that, I understand that the culture of the military tends to be very conservative. So I'm sure like everybody that is pretty conservative. But what would you say are your conservative beliefs? Is there anything that you think that Republicans and Trump are currently doing that you agree with, Eric? And thank you for being here. Azul says, is it mostly because Israel freedom of speech? I'm not really sure what you mean by that, Azul. Can you clarify that question? S.E. Morgan says the right is trying to take away the First Amendment. That is accurate. Christy says, thoughts on Pam Bondi and her statement that we will come after people using hate speech. Yeah, hate speech is legal. It is insane that they are expanding what unprotected speech looks like in this country, and where unprotected speech is very specifically things that they do not like. It is so blatant. It is so obvious. They are just going after people they don't like and speech that they don't like. You can say whatever you fucking want. You can make shit up. You can use fucking racial slurs or whatever. So long as you are towing the party line, what you're doing doesn't count as illegal or bad. Where a bunch of people burning Waymos in Los Angeles, that's like domestic terrorism, but January 6th was just a peaceful protest. Like, you guys see how they don't really give a shit about reality? They're just doing whatever the fuck they want to do. San Juan says, Trump calls Dems deranged lunatics, worst scum on earth daily. That rhetoric okay? No, it is not. It is grossly irresponsible. If you look at everybody on the higher-ups of the left, like all of the elected politicians or the left-wing content creators and progressive influencers and even reporters who are centrist by nature but might have progressive, views themselves, they are all condemning in the strongest possible language all of this rhetoric and political violence. And people on the right, like Donald Trump and Alex Jones and Elon Musk and Laura Loomers and their J.D. Vance, they're all hyping things up. They're all trying to ramp things up, and they're incentivizing their base to do violence against their enemies. It's fucking disgusting and dangerous. It's so irresponsible. It is shockingly irresponsible. Eric says, I like your live. Thanks for engaging with me and respecting me. Yeah, of course. I'm sorry I missed your response, but sometimes the comments come in too fast and I lose threads here. Eric says, I agree with securing the borders. I didn't like how Doge did things, but I do believe in smaller government. Okay. Yeah, so where I come down on this, Eric, is I don't believe that the Democratic Party is the party of having weak borders. The Obama administration invested in strengthening border security, and they continued to fund organizations like ICE. The Biden administration, same thing. There were no open borders during the Biden administration. And in fact, during the Biden administration, the Democrats and Republicans tried to work on a bipartisan border bill so that everybody could get a little bit of something that they wanted, more border security for the Republicans and more hiring asylum judges and immigration judges for the Democrats. And even though Republicans worked on that with Democrats, the Trump called up the Republican senators, even though he wasn't president. He called up the Republican senators and he said, "Hey, don't vote for that bill because I want this to continue being a problem so I can run on this and win my presidency." So yeah, I don't understand. I understand where it came from. Like, I know it's all bullshit and misinformation and propaganda, but it just doesn't make any sense to me to view the Democratic Party as the weaker party on immigration. How do you think about all that, Eric? And then we can start talking about smaller government after that. Let's see here. Dochim Charlie says the borders were wide open during the Biden administration. That is a lie. Doc, I am Charlie. Ask a question or I'm going to boot you. J.O. Koo says they say Charlie Kirk's free speech was infringed upon. I mean, unless he was murdered by the government for the things that he was saying, then his free speech was not infringed upon. He was murdered. Let's see here. You said try again, Doc, I'm Charlie. Well, congratulations. That's not a question, so you're out of here. Alrighty. Brandon Schinaberger says Obama also deported 2.5 million, where almost half had literally no criminal charges. I'm not really sure about that stat, Brandon. I don't know how accurate it is, but to my point, the Democrats do border policy and immigration policy. So it's like, why did people vote for the worst version of border security? Because they felt like Democrats weren't doing enough? Like, I just don't get it, Eric. Eric, finally, a response. Sorry, that wasn't finally, like you took too long. The border stuff you said made sense. I think our federal government is too large. Okay, well, I'm glad that we agree on the immigration stuff. Now let's talk about smaller government. JP12 Real, good morning, and thank you. Good morning to you. Joni Fluna says, not sure if this counts as politics, but any thoughts on California possibly moving towards mileage tax to replace a gas tax? Oh, that's interesting. You know, I haven't heard too much about that, Joni, so unfortunately I can't really opine on that. Is that supposed to make up for revenue as people are switching from gas vehicles to electric vehicles? I don't love punishing people for, moving away from fossil fuels, but I mean, I get it if we need, if we need the revenue for things to make people's lives better. John Selford says, how does this time compare to with what the U.S. went through with McCarthyism? I mean, there's a lot of similarities. I'm not really an expert in that period of history, so I couldn't go into more detail there, but yeah, it's some real fucking McCarthy shit, Stoner Punk says, I knew Trump was going to be horrible, but he's doing even worse than I thought. Stoner Punks, I wish I could say the same, but this is exactly what I fucking said was going to happen. This is, guys, see if you can convince everybody else to listen to me, because this is exactly what I fucking said was going to happen. Before the election, months before the election, a year before the election. Like, I've been out here saying this shit 5 days a week. Nobody fucking listens to me, 85 million Americans still not voting. 75 million Americans voted for Trump? No one's listening to me. Oh, right. It's the Rocketeer says, what color scare are we calling this period? The orange scare? Yeah, that's appropriate and hilarious. Eric Vega says, I support Trump. I mean, I don't think you should, Eric, but you want to tell me why without, what do you call it? Without calling me a cuck? Cat Daddy says, may you explain why eggs and gas have went down? They have not. Everything is more expensive right now, Cat Daddy. And not only is everything more expensive, but the bond market is crashing, the value of dollar is crashing, and unemployment is skyrocketing. So, yeah, the Trump administration is ruining our economy. It is the biggest self-own loss from the front. We have snatched defeat from the jaws of victory thanks to the Trump administration. Chrissy says, thoughts on Trump reducing sanctions for Belarus and possible threat to Lithuania? That's a little over my head, Christy. I'm so sorry about that. Non-consensual learning, good to see you again, says, why didn't we hear much about Dem Senator Hortman and husband killed? Who was her killer? She was killed by a MAGA person. And that's the reason why we're not hearing too much about it. We don't care about violence against the left in this country. That is partially because of who the president currently is and the pressure that he is putting on our information environment to not lean into Democratic assassinations, but to lean into the Charlie Kirk assassination. Additionally, it is because the billionaire class has completely captured our social media information channels. And so things do not become a big stink when it is violent against the left, but it does become a big stink when it's violence against the right. Chris says there was an Indian manager beheaded in Texas by an immigrant and no one talked about it. I mean, one murder, that sounds terrible, Chris. I don't know why you think that needs to be a national story. Because it was an immigrant that did it? Because non-immigrants do way more murders per capita in America than immigrants. So I'm much less concerned about one murder than I am the trend. Alice says Trump has made more money for himself than any other president in full term. Do people not question? A lot of people don't know about that, Alice. He is stealing from the American people. He is accepting bribes from adversarial nations and billionaires and tech bros. He is literally selling our best artificial intelligence technology to the UAE because they put $15 billion into his fucking cryptocurrency. Like, that is a massive national security fucking issue. He is selling your security away. He is selling all of our security away so that he can have more money. So fucking disgusting. And what's he gonna live? Like another 10 years for him to fucking enjoy it? It's so fucking disgusting. Alrighty. Crypto King says Democrats are so jealous of the Republicans. That's why they act twisted. That's not a question. So see you later. Scrolling down to the bottom. Chris, Biden was receiving money from China. There is no credible evidence of that, Chris. Ask a question or I'm going to boot you. J.O. Koo says him making money off the presidency is an impeachable offense. By the way, without question, 100%. And it is further evidence that the Republican Party is completely fucking full of shit. Because every single Republican that is in office right now, they own Congress, they own the judiciary, they own the Senate, and they are doing fucking nothing about this, about the fact that Donald Trump is selling our country away for fucking pieces, that all of us are living in a more dangerous world. We are less safe from foreign threats, from hackers, from identity thieves, from from diseases coming from other nations, from, not being able to get vaccine because our HHS person is a conspiracy theory, just so that he can be rich, just so that he can have more money than the rest of us. Alrighty, Alice says he won't live 20 years. He's deterring as we speak. I mean, from your lips to God's ears, Alice. Let's see here. Cat Daddy says, if so, sir, how come when I go to the store in Texas, eggs are $8 rather than $12? I don't believe you, Cat Daddy. Sorry. I don't believe one person going to one grocery store. I believe the national trends. When the newspaper tells me that they have looked at every single grocery store in every state and prices are all going up, that I believe. I don't just believe some random person on the internet. Megan says, what FBI has best stats in 35 years? Well, I don't trust the FBI. The FBI right now is being controlled by a guy named Kash Patel, who is vastly unqualified for the job. He's a Trump sycophant. He's going to do whatever Trump tells him to do. So they'll cook the books. They'll completely fucking lie about what's going on. Let's see here. Non-consensual learning says, was Senator Hortman voting against her Democratic Party in the days leading up to her murder? I don't know non-consensual learning, but I'm also like, are we really searching for conspiracy theories here? Like, we really think the Democratic Party had one of their own members assassinated? This dude had a hit list of other Democrats. He was part of like a cell. He was part of a militia of people that were planning on doing this. Like, we have the data. Lead 60 says, do you think the midterms will be a blue wave? It will if people like me and you do the work of making it into a blue wave. Let's not just sit on our hands and hope that somebody comes and saves us. Right. JP12 says, you mentioned Republicans not doing anything while in control. Any idea why they aren't doing more? They are either scared of Trump or they are on board with what he is doing. A lot of Republicans right now in office, they're real fucking fascist curious or fascist excited. And the ones that aren't are just too terrified of reprisal, of either losing their job or having Trump's base do violence against them, that they are not willing to stand up and do anything about it. It's so fucking... I use the words disgusting and barbaric a lot on this live stream because, I mean, are there harsher words? Can somebody give me harsher words, please? Because they don't even feel appropriate. They feel underwhelming compared to what's actually going on. Alrighty. C. Flan says, becoming very disillusioned with politics in general. Neither side cares about us. C. Flan, we've talked about this. There's a difference between the two parties. Democratic politicians are doing work for people like you and me. They are. And so to say that neither side cares about us is inaccurate. It's cynical. It's encouraging people to be disengaged. Let people be engaged. Find the people who are helping and then help them do more help. Megan says, he's not out of control. He's just out of your control. Thank God. Are you talking about Trump, Megan? Your idea is to hate Trump, period. All right, Megan. Yeah, you're completely full of it. So see you later. Scrolling down to the bottom. Let's see here. Kamala Cat says, free America from Israel. Yeah, sure. Vile and Satanic, East meets Westy Bestie. Yeah, Vile is good. Satanic is a little hyperbolic. I mean, I think it's accurate, but I mean, a lot of people are going to think it's hyperbolic. Middleman says they only using Melissa Hortman's murder to fit a narrative, and it's disgusting. Who's only using Melissa Hortman's murder to fit a narrative, and it's disgusting? Let's see here. Middleman. Let's see here. Middleman says most of Dems talking about Melissa Hortman's family's murder didn't even post anything about it. Middleman, that is nonsense. That is complete and utter nonsense. The left went out after Melissa Hortman's murder and said this was vile, this was disgusting. No, we should not be doing political violence in this country. And then, you know what Trump did? Absolutely nothing. He didn't even call the governor to talk about, like, oh, how can we make sure things like this don't happen, you know? A fucking Democratic state senator and her husband and their dog were murdered by one of his MAGA loyalists. And he did fucking nothing about it, man. JD says, didn't the assassin work for Tim Walz? That doesn't sound accurate to me. Lucy says he called them dumb. Yeah, he called Tim Walz dumb. So he's not going to call and, offer condolences for the Democrat that was murdered by one of his people. Cefalon says, I wouldn't call it cynical, just observations about what both sides say compared to what they do. I think it's really important to look at the details, though, Cefalon. Like, Democrats aren't doing 100% of what they say they're going to do because of corruption and because the Republicans are filibustering them, you know? But they are getting things done. They did lower prices. They did lower inflation. They did support the union. They did pass the largest green energy investment bill in world history. It's like, does none of that count? Like, does that not outweigh them not being 100% perfect? And compare that to all the shit the Republicans are currently doing right now? Like, how do you not see the difference there? All right, Fletch Lives Again says, how did you know this Trump term was going to be way worse? So here's why I knew. Number one, look at the things that stopped Trump in his first term, and they were all gone. Trump was inexperienced. He did not know how to be a dictator back then. He was not hiring loyalists. He was hiring just Republicans who were recommended to him because he didn't fucking know shit. He didn't know people. And now he has a plan, Project 2025. He's replaced all of those people with loyalists who will just do whatever the fuck he tells them to do. Additionally, he spent his entire first term purging the party of Republicans that had any fucking backbone. In 2016, there were still people like John McCain and Mitt Romney and Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger and Jeff Flake who would say things like, no, that's psychotic. You're not doing that. So he got all of those people unelected, and they've all been replaced with Marjorie Taylor Greenes and shit like that. So yeah, he had a plan. He had more knowledge. He had his team more together. So all the roadblocks that stopped him in his first term are all gone. And I listened to him. I listened to the things he was saying. I read Project 2025. I was like, they're going to do this, guys. And nobody fucking listened to me. Chili Willy, happy Thursday, everybody. Happy Thursday to you as well. Pink Squirrel says, the way he did that is the way we should do the Republicans this next cycle. I think that there are some things to mirror in that behavior, but I don't think all of it should be mirrored. I think we need to be really specific when we say that Democrats need to be like more aggressive or better at messaging. But to say just we should do to them what the Republicans did to us, we're getting to some real negative territory there. Like, fascism is bad no matter whether it's a left-wing fascist or a right-wing fascist. Let's see here. Pink Squirrel says, voting, get them unelected. Yes, Pink Squirrel, 100%. Non-consensual learning says, Jared, I love what you're doing. I don't fully agree with you, but I enjoy hearing your perspective. Thank you, non-consensual learning. I appreciate you being here. User a bunch of numbers says MAGA has the audacity to say that Marjorie Taylor Greene or Kash Patel are qualified for their jobs. Accurate. Jack says, I've been trying to lighten the mood a bit for this live. Tell us your favorite movie. Ooh, my favorite. I don't have one favorite movie. I used to go Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but I don't know. I love movies too much. I get new favorite movies every once in a while, just off the top of my head, It Follows, Interstellar, Parasite, Seventh Seal, Inglourious Bastards. There's a whole bunch. Alrighty, let's see here. Sean Cole says, do what the Republicans have done to fix things. No more constitutional loopholes. Yeah, I'm done with that. But here's the thing, guys. We need to give the Democratic Party more power to actually do the things that they say that they're going to do, or that we want them to do. And when Democrats win, we saw this in 2008, we saw this in 2020. When Democrats win, the billionaire class goes into fucking hyperdrive, and they start flooding the zone with a bunch of narratives to try to make them less popular, where they're doing the work, and then the narrative becomes either they're not doing enough work or they're doing too much work, and they just flood the zone. Read Dark Money, guys, because this happened to Obama in 2008. It's the reason why we don't have a public option right now. We could have had the Affordable Care Act with a public option, so you could buy into Medicaid if you want. Alrighty, let's see what we got here. Jack says, do you think Kamala Harris will rerun? I don't know. But I'm also I don't really care about predicting 2028 shit. David says, does MAGA have a clue what the First Amendment is? I mean, some people don't in the Republican base, and some people do. Some people think that the First Amendment means the people who are saying the things that we don't like should suffer consequences. But we should be able to say whatever the fuck we want to say. And that's obviously not the fucking point of the First Amendment. But some people are getting their news from unreliable sources that are telling them that what they're doing is legally justified, or tit for tat, or insert rationale here. That's part of the Republican strategy, by the way, is they give 1,000 false reasons for everything that they do, and they hope that one of them will stick to your ribs. So the Democratic Party is bad, says the Republican Party, and you, a random person on the internet, say why. And they say because they're trying to do universal health care, which is socialism. And you say, oh, but I want universal health care. And they go, oh, did I say that they were socialists? No, they're actually not really socialists. They're a bunch of fucking capitalists, they take money from health insurance lobbies, so they're not actually going to do universal health care for you. That's why they're bad. Do you guys see how the propaganda game works? Lead 60 says, can we just go for the popular vote and leave off the parties? I understand people's objections to the two-party system. I think it can be a little hyperbolic and misleading. I think a lot of the problems that we associate with the two-party system is actually the fault of Citizens United and Money in Politics and the Republican Party. But I do think that we should go to a popular vote, 100%. The Electoral College is just DEI for the Republican Party. Cameron Hodge says, have you followed Trump's UK meeting? Any important information out of it? I mean, it's just so depressing. It's all of these nations, kissing Trump's ass and giving him the pomp and circumstance that he wants, just so that he doesn't fuck with them more. But that's the thing with bullies, is if you acquiesce, they just do more. Who are the people that Trump is not pushing around? It's Vladimir Putin and Netanyahu, the two people who are decidedly not just doing what Donald Trump tells them to do. Donald Trump is telling Putin to stop the war in Ukraine. Not only is Putin not stopping, he is escalating, and he's sending drones into Poland and Romania, which are NATO countries. He told Netanyahu, you gotta stop this. You gotta fucking stop all this murder and shit. Stop bombing Iran and stuff like that. And what did Netanyahu do? Bombed 8 other countries in the region. Oh, right. Jack says, I disagree on the popular votes. I'd love to convince you that the popular vote is more the move, Jack, but why do you think it isn't the move? Actually, before you tell me why you think it's not the move, let me tell you why I think it's the move. Let's see here. Cameron Hodge says, how come it seems like Trump is always getting his way? Because he has a complicit Republican Party, whereas the Democratic Party is a big tent, and so there's plenty of debate and compromise within the party. The Republican Party just does whatever Donald Trump tells them to do. And also, he is working in coalition with the billionaire class, which has control over basically everything. Like, they're the ones that control the media, the social media, the legacy media. They own every industry, and they can use their money to help spread his propaganda. So here's the reason why I think we need to go back to the popular vote, Jack. Because unless you are a swing state, your vote essentially doesn't matter. And I do not believe that's like one reason of 1,000 why I think we need to get rid of the Electoral College. But I do not think that telling a Republican in California that they might as well not vote is good for American democracy. And I don't think telling a Democrat in California that you probably don't need to vote because the state's going that way anyways is not good for democracy. I don't think that Republicans in Texas having their votes mean less than Republicans in Iowa or Utah or Democrats in Vermont. I don't think that's good for democracy. I also don't think that the Electoral College does what it says it does. I don't think it gives the smaller states more representation. It just is all it is it focuses all of our electoral might on, what is it, like a dozen swing states or some shit? Yeah. The only time I went to college in Ohio, I've lived in New York and California. The only time I was ever in a state that a presidential candidate went to was when I was in college. Globetrotter says, completely agree with you on the popular vote point. Thank you. Taggart says, seems to be able to do it now. Not really sure what that means. Jack says, was this election the first in a while where the Republicans won the majority? Yes. In, I want to say something like 30 years or something. Reagan won the popular vote twice. George H.W. Bush, I believe, won the popular vote, but George W. Bush did not win the popular vote in 2000. He did win it in 2004, but then a Republican did not win the popular vote in 2008, 2012, 2016, and 2020. Taggart says, I'm only allowed so many letters. Read the sentence before that. Taggart. In the early 1900s, why were they so successful in getting rid of the billionaire class? Then we don't seem to be able to do it now. That's a really good question. I mean, history is complicated. There's like a ton of, world events paired with who is currently in charge to handle those events. Yeah, I mean, World War I, the Great Depression, World War II, like the Roosevelts, like it's a bunch of things. And I mean, like, I'm not a historian, so I don't have every specific detail about the difference between now and then, but yeah, I just think it's like trying to predict the weather. There's just like so many different things going on. Yeah, I don't know. JP12 says, how much would be fixed with ranked choice voting? I think like maybe 10% of our electoral problems would be fixed with ranked choice voting, but it's important to remember that they had ranked choice voting in New York during one of their recent mayoral elections, and they still elected Eric Adams, and he fucking sucks. Alrighty, MYK says, what race deserves the biggest apology? What race deserves the biggest apology? I don't know. It's not the white one, that's for darn sure. Alrighty, Timmy Topdeck says, you got the correct flag. Nice. Yeah, I did a little graphic redesign. Shark News says, how do you feel about Antifa being designated a terrorist organization? So Trump tried to do this in his first term, and it was stupid then. Antifa is not a group. There are not Antifa people who are there to be arrested. It is a philosophy. And so who are you going after? It is basically just the Trump administration trying to jail dissidents. They are trying to use the power of the government to stop people from saying and doing things that they do not like, regardless of if we are doing things that we are constitutionally allowed to do. It is trampling our rights. It is authoritarianism, pure and simple. San Juan says, I'm Antifa. All right, we found one person who's a member of Antifa. Can you show us your card, my guy? Jack says, what do you think we should do with PDF files? Death, chemical castration, prison, let me know. That's a really good question. I actually had a friend who used to work in rehabilitation for PDF files, and he told me that there are some people that you're never going to be able to take away their desire to do that terrible stuff. And so, Yeah, I don't know. Like, it seems very dystopian to do like chemical castration, but I don't know. Maybe it's justified in some ways. Like, does it do anything to tamp down their desires if they're chemically castrated? I don't know. I'm not for the death penalty in any situation. Maybe an argument could be made for life in prison or something like that, or I don't know. Like, let's give him an island or something. I hear one's available. Leeds says, "What do you think about Trump institutionalizing the homeless? Who would make that decision?" So that's a really good question. There's like, the reason why it's difficult is because it is one of a thousand things that the Trump administration is doing to justify throwing people in jail that they do not like, authoritarianism, fascism shit. So is there like a specific time or person that is going to make that a federal policy? Like, I'm not 100% sure. But it is possible that ICE just kind of starts doing it. There's no oversight for ICE, and they have just had their budget increased 360%. So yeah, I don't know what the mechanisms they might try to use to try to like wiggle it through some sort of legal justification, but the mechanism that Trump is doing is just, I say it, they do it. And then if there's like legal issues, then we can handle that later, and then hopefully we can whittle away enough power and install enough judges where those cases will break our way. But yeah, we're winning because ICE is just doing it, because they just do what I tell them to do, shit like that. Jack Shack says, "Were you a fan of Hillary Clinton? Please answer without answering Trump. I was too young to know her." So Hillary Clinton was fine. She was okay. There were problems with the Clintons. She obviously had some issues, skeletons in the closet. But I find that, I mean, it's not I find, it is an honest fact that the Republican Party has been smearing her and Bill Clinton for decades. And so there's just kind of like this cumulative effect of how we view the Clintons as being this highly powerful assassins that kill people that disagree with them and manipulate everybody behind the scenes and shit like that. And it's just not really accurate. If you read some of the leaked Hillary Clinton emails, she just seems like a nice old lady. Like, she was saying things. Constituents would reach out to her, and then she would forward those emails to her team and be like, "What can we do to help this person to get their husbands the legal counsel that they need, or this person needs help with their rent, or this person needs help getting to a food bank," or something like that. I don't think that you work for the Children's Defense Fund if you are a fucking agent of the deep state. You know what I mean? So like, she was fine. She did some good things, she did some bad things, she was fine. Jack says, "I want to take the time to thank you for doing your best to inform people with your views." Thank you, Jack. I appreciate that. All right. Timmy Topdeck says, "She was running in a presidential race with only 2 legs." I don't know what that means. With only 2 legs. Is that like part of the way that the right would smear her? Flamingo Mo, good to see you again. Pally for Life says, "Israel's committing genocide in Palestine." That is accurate. Scarlett says, "Pre-Trump, was there ever such a divided time?" An argument could be made, but if you look at voting data from like the 70s to now, what you see is many fewer politicians voting in a way that is purple. Like, it used to be that you could maybe convince a Republican to vote for a Democratic bill. You could maybe convince a Democrat to vote for a Republican bill. But because of the sort of like rhetoric that has been escalating since the 80s, since the end of the Fairness Doctrine, and the rise of right-wing media like right-wing talk radio and Fox News, what we are seeing is that Republican politicians are incentivized to not work with Democrats, even if it is something that would help their constituents. And as that has been happening, the Republican Party has been becoming more and more extreme, to where the things that used to be normal compromises for the Democratic Party were now non-starters. So yeah, I think that I forget what your original question was, but yeah, I think there have been times when we have been this divided, but I do think that it's different now. Like, things are weirder and more calcified now and more extreme now. Yeah, it's a fucking bummer. Alrighty. Mandy Kidwell Parkin says, "How can this country not be in complete fear of losing freedom of speech after today?" I have no idea, Mandy. My faith is in people like me and you who are doing the work, because that is the only way that we get out of this, guys. Alrighty. I am going to do my outro. So get your final questions in, everybody. And just my heartfelt thanks for y'all for being here and for asking questions and liking and sharing and sending gifts and subscribing and all the good stuff. I appreciate all the support that you guys give to me and my channel. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. If you have any questions that come up before I do my next live stream, when I'm not streaming, do not be shy about reaching out. I want to be a resource for you guys. I want to get more people educated and involved. I want more people organizing, and I want more people working towards the goal of having a better country and government. And if I can be a part of that for you, I want you to fucking use me until I'm all fucking used up. So shoot me an email, shoot me a DM. DMs are open. You can email me through my website. I've also got a Discord. It's a really great way to get in touch. But also the Discord's a good resource for if you're looking for ways to get more involved. I have a thread there called The Work that gives you all sorts of ways that you can do good work. And there's also recommendations for podcasts and books and shit like that. And lastly, just please do the work, guys, and recruit other people to do the work. I think we are in it's getting worse and worse every fucking day. And while we are seeing the work is working, it's just not working fast enough because the billionaires and the Republicans have too much money and power right now. If we do the work, we will win eventually. There's not a too late to get involved. There's just a more dangerous. If we wait, it becomes more dangerous to get involved because, you could be like Kimmel and just go out there and say a bunch of facts that aren't even that controversial, and you get fired from your job because Trump doesn't like you, or you had a tweet criticizing Trump back in 2015. ICE finds it. They break down your door. They send you to fucking South Sudan. That's what happens if we wait. Alrighty, let's see here. Jansen says, "No, you can't beat a rigged game by playing it better." Are you a Republican? Are you somebody who works for the Trump administration? Because that line that you just said there is doing a lot of work for them. Trying to get people to not vote, not being involved in the process, not actually trying to get anything done. So Jansen, it seems like you're like a Republican or a MAGA person, because what you just said, the Trump administration pays people to say shit like that. Goddamn. Mitch McConnell's favorite fucking person over here, Jansen. Like, yeah, good for you, man. I hope you're getting paid by like Russia or some shit like that, because if you're just putting that out there for free, like, you're just doing a ton of work for the Republican Party, for no money, Jansen says, "What? No authoritarian government has fallen democratically, but they have fallen through peaceful resistance, which is what I'm advocating for, my guy." So, Jack says, "Genuine question, could you be bought and paid for? What's your price?" No, absolutely not. Jensen says, "When, where?" Literally every time. Violent uprisings are less effective than non-violent resistance. If you just get 3.5% of the population of a country to engage in nonviolent resistance, you win. Google a woman named Erica Chenoweth. She is a political scientist, and she and her team have crunched the numbers. And nonviolent resistance, nonviolent activism is significantly more effective than violent resistance. All right. Lisa Salas says, "How do we undo the damages that's been done to our country after Trump is gone?" We just got to do the work, Lisa. It is just people like you and me doing the work. Jansen, Google Erica Chenoweth. Check out her research. I do not have her book memorized, shockingly. So yeah, maybe do like a tiny bit of work. Sorry, you really rubbed me the wrong way, Jensen, with your whole fucking thing here. So yeah, if you are sincerely here in good faith and you actually will do a little research and check out Erica Chenoweth, then yeah, I will apologize for my tone. But I honestly, I don't really trust you. I think you're sus as hell. I think you're just here to smear dirt and do the work of the Republican Party. Sphinx Egyptian says, us blue collar workers have stocks and 401ks for retirement. Is my stocks lower from the tariffs? They are, Sphinx Egyptian. They might not be as low as they could be. There are all these weird factors that are sort of rallying the market, but basically everybody agrees that a crash and a recession is coming. But yeah, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. If the Fed cut rates to try to make it so that a recession doesn't happen, but that just means that inflation is going to escalate. It's going to accelerate, and yeah, with the tariffs increasing cost of living, it's just going to make everybody's lives harder. But but the market might not tank because of that. Let's see here. Jansen says, I'm a history major, citing history. Well, you spelled citing wrong, which is why I'm asking for an example. So yeah, again, Jansen, sus as hell, man. Lisa Salas says, do you plan on running for Congress? I do not. Erica Chenoweth, Jay Cooktree, Erica Chenoweth. Let's see here. I will, and I'm not TF. What's TF mean, Jansen? Let's see here. Lead 60 says the power of the people is stronger than the power of the government. We just have to believe that. Yes, accurate 100% Lead 60. The idea that we are fucked and that we shouldn't do anything about it because of how fucked we are, that is what they want. They want your cynicism. They want your pessimism. They want you to think voting doesn't do anything. But voting is one of the most important things that you can do. I'm talking to you, Jensen. Right. W. Page says, so sus from a professional historian. Yeah, accurate. Jack says, what should the minimum wage be? Ooh, that's a really good question. I mean, at this point, probably like $25 an hour or something like that. But yeah, that's more of a question for an economist. I just think it should be higher than it is. Jansen, R94, says, depends on the states. Looks like we... Looking real libertarian over here, my guy Jansen. Man, we're having a good time, Jansen. We're having a good time. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. And just remember that no one's coming to save us. We have to do the work. So please get out there, do the work, and recruit other people to do the work. Their cynicism is a gift to the authoritarianism. Pessimism is a gift to the authoritarianism. Giving up is a gift to Trump and Elon Musk and the billionaire class and the entire fucking Republican Party. So do the work and do not give them that gift. And do your self-care. Remember, self-care is part of the work. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye, 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 goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Goodbye.